Olivia Mercer looked out the window of Harmony Point Space Station. The stars shone bright against the black of space. She sighed and turned back to her small lab. As a xenobiologist, she studied alien animals and plants. Most days she loved her job. Today was different. Today, the Varaxians were coming. The Varaxians were tall aliens with skin like polished stone. They had ruled their part of space for hundreds of years. They did not like humans much. This meeting was meant to help the two species get along better after years of Cold War. "Dr. Mercer, they're docking now," said a voice over the station's speakers. It was Captain Frank Jones, the station commander. "Thank you, Captain," Olivia replied. She straightened her blue science uniform and checked her appearance one last time in the reflection of her screen. Her brown hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her green eyes looked tired after staying up late to review Varaxian biology files. Olivia wasn't supposed to meet the Varaxians. She was just a scientist who studied alien life, not a diplomat. But all station personnel had been told to be on their best behavior. One wrong move could cause problems between humans and Varaxians. She left her lab and walked to the observation deck. Many station staff gathered there, watching through the large windows as the Varaxian ship connected to the station. It was huge and dark with sharp angles that made it look like a weapon more than a ship. "Impressive, isn't it?" asked Dr. Alan Walsh, her supervisor. He was an older man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had studied alien life for 30 years. "Scary. Is more like it?" Olivia said quietly. The doors to the docking bay opened. The Varaxian delegation walked into the station. They wore armor that gleamed under the lights. Their faces had no noses, just breathing slits, and their eyes were large, with pupils like a cat's. But what made everyone step back were the creatures that walked beside them. "War beasts," whispered Alan. The war beasts were huge. Each one stood as tall as a horse but had 6 legs and a body covered in scales that shifted colors like oil on water. Their heads were massive, with jaws that looked strong enough to crush metal. Each beast walked beside a Varaxian warrior, connected by what looked like a leash made of light. "I thought animals weren't allowed on diplomatic visits," Olivia said. "They're not pets. They're sacred to Varaxians. Part weapon, part religious symbol. We had to allow them or there would be no meeting," Alan explained. Captain Jones welcomed the Varaxians with formal words. The lead Varaxian, Ambassador Zextor, replied in a voice that sounded like stones grinding together. Everyone was tense, but things seemed to be going well. Then the lights flickered. "Minor power fluctuation," announced the station's computer voice. "Backup systems engaged. It should have been nothing. A small problem." But when the lights came back on seconds later, one of the war beasts was gone. Its leash of light had disappeared. "Where is Vexcar?" roared the Varaxian who had been holding the creature. "Where is my war beast?" Alarms began to sound. "Security." Officers ran in all directions. The Varaxians shouted in their language, their hands moving to weapons. "The power fluctuation must have disrupted the control leash," said Alan to Olivia as they pressed against a wall to avoid the chaos. "This is bad. Those creatures are incredibly dangerous when not controlled." "Attention all personnel," Captain Jones's voice came over the speakers. "A Varaxian war beast is loose on the station. Stay in secure areas. Security teams are responding." Olivia felt her heart race. She should go back to her lab and lock the door. That would be the smart thing to do, but then her communicator beeped. "The creature is in Hydroponics Bay 3, said a security officer's voice. "We're sealing the area." Olivia froze. Hydroponics Bay 3 was where she grew plants from Earth, rare plants that she had brought from home. Without thinking, she started running toward the hydroponics section. "Olivia, stop." Alan called after her, but she was already gone. The halls were empty as everyone followed orders to stay in secure areas. When she reached Hydroponics Bay 3, she could hear crashing sounds from inside. Security officers stood outside the sealed door. "You can't go in there, Dr. Mercer," said Officer Lisa Chun. "That thing will tear you apart. Those are Earth plants." "In there, irreplaceable samples," Olivia argued. And that creature is probably just scared. A loud crash came from inside, followed by a roar that made the door vibrate. Scared? It sounds like it's destroying everything, said another officer. We're waiting for the Varaxians to get here with control equipment. Olivia thought quickly. The door to Bay 4 connects to Bay 3. Let me go through there. I just want to save some samples. The officers looked at each other, then at the sound of more destruction inside. Your funeral, muttered Officer Chun. Stepping aside, Olivia hurried to Bay 4 and slipped through the connecting door. What she saw made her stop in her tracks. The war beast was in the center of the room, surrounded by broken planters and scattered soil. It was even bigger up close. Its scales rippled with colors of red and black, showing its agitation. Its 6 legs ended in claws that had torn up the metal flooring. It swung its massive head back and forth, looking for threats. Olivia knew she should back away slowly, leave, wait for the Varaxians, but then she saw something that changed everything. The creature was bleeding from its side. A piece of metal had cut it during its rampage. It wasn't just destroying things for no reason, it was in pain and confused. Hey there, she said softly. The war beast whirled toward her, its jaws opening to show rows of teeth. A low growl filled the room. Olivia stayed perfectly still. She remembered her work with injured wolves back on Earth. Show no fear. Make no sudden moves. You're hurt, she said in the same gentle voice. You're scared, I understand. The creature took a step toward her, still growling. Olivia noticed something strange. Under its throat were what looked like ridged sacs that vibrated as it growled. Resonance chambers, she realized, like those in some earth animals that help them make sounds, without really knowing why. Olivia began to sing. It was an old song her grandmother had taught her. A simple melody about mountains and valleys and coming home. Her voice shook at first, but grew stronger as she continued. The war beast stopped moving. Its growl faded. The resonance chambers under its throat began to vibrate in a different pattern, almost as if trying to match her song. Olivia took a careful step forward, still singing. The beast watched her but didn't attack. Another step, then another. She kept singing the same melody over and over, watching as the creature's color slowly changed from angry reds to calmer blues and purples. By the time the door burst open and both human security and Varaxian handlers rushed in with weapons ready, Olivia was sitting on the floor next to the massive war beast. It had curled around her like a protective wall. Its resonance chambers humming along with her song. Everyone stopped and stared. The Varaxian handler said something in his language that sounded like a prayer. What is happening? Asked Captain Jones from the doorway. The war beast raised its head and growled at the newcomers. Olivia placed a hand on its scaled side and it calmed again. I think, she said quietly, that we've misunderstood each other. Olivia sat in Captain Jones's office. It had been 3 days since her encounter with the Varaxian war beast. 3 days of endless questions, medical scans, and worried looks from her fellow station members. The beast, which the Varaxians called Vexkar, meaning Stormbringer, had refused to leave her side for the first day. It took 5 Varaxian handlers to finally coax it back to their ship. I don't understand what happened any more than you do, Olivia said to the captain. I just sang to it, I wasn't thinking. Captain Jones rubbed his forehead. Well, your not thinking has caused quite a situation. The Varaxians are in an uproar. Half of them think you've stolen their sacred animal's soul. The other half think you're some kind of witch. That's ridiculous, Olivia said. I'm a scientist. There must be a biological explanation for how the beast responded to my singing. Maybe so, the captain replied, but the Varaxians aren't known for their scientific approach. They're warriors and mystics. And right now, you're at the center of what they're calling an omen. The door opened and Dr. Alan Walsh walked in. He looked tired but excited. Captain, the Varaxian ambassador is requesting another meeting with Dr. Mercer, Alan said. And this time they want her to bring research equipment. Olivia looked surprised. They want me to study the war beast? Apparently, Alan said with a small smile. This is unprecedented. No non-Varaxian has ever been allowed to study there. War beasts up close. Captain Jones looked unhappy. I don't like it. What if this is a trap? They could be planning to blame her for corrupting their beast. I don't think so, Alan said. I've been talking with their science officer. She says, the priests are very interested in what happened. They think it might be connected to some old Varaxian legends. Olivia felt a mix of fear and excitement. This could be the research opportunity of a lifetime. I want to do it, she said firmly. 4 hours later, Olivia stood in a large room on the Varaxian ship. Her hands shook slightly as she set up her scanning equipment. 3 Varaxian guards watched her every move. Their armor clicked as they shifted position. Behind them stood Zexler, a Varaxian who had been introduced as a song priest. Your equipment will not harm Vexcar? The priest asked. His voice was softer than other Varaxians, almost musical. No, these are just scanners. They record information without touching, Olivia explained, trying to keep her voice steady. The priest nodded. Good, Vexcar has been different since your encounter. We wish to understand why. A door slid open at the far end of the room. 2 handlers lead Vexcar in. The massive beast's scales shimmered with blues and greens. When it saw Olivia, it made a low rumbling sound and pulled against its handlers. It recognizes you, said Zexler with wonder in his voice. Olivia nodded, feeling a strange connection to the creature. May I approach it? The priest hesitated, then nodded. The handlers will remain close. Olivia walked slowly toward Vexcar. The war beast grew still, its large eyes fixed on her. When she was a few feet away, it lowered its massive head to her. Level, the resonance chambers under its throat began to vibrate gently. Hello again, Olivia said softly. Without thinking, she started to hum the same melody she had sung in the hydroponics bay. The effect was immediate. Vexcar's scales rippled with bright blues, and its resonance chambers began to vibrate in a pattern that almost matched her tune. Her scanner beeped. Olivia looked down at the readings in amazement. This is incredible, she said. The vibrations from its resonance chambers are creating sound patterns that human ears can't detect. But they match the mathematical pattern of my song, just at a different frequency. Zexler moved closer, his interest clear. We have always known our war beasts respond to our ceremonial songs, but never have they responded to an off-worlder's voice. For the next 2 hours, Olivia ran tests. She sang different songs, and Vexcar responded differently to each one. When she sang fast, happy tunes, its scales turned bright yellow and blue. Slow, sad songs made the scales shift to deep purples. And all the while, the resonance chambers created complex patterns of sound that her instruments could detect, but human ears could not hear. It's like a language, she said finally, looking at her data. Not words, but emotions conveyed through sound patterns. Yes, said Zexler. This is what the ancient texts describe. The song bond, but it has been generations. Since any Varaxian has achieved such a connection with a war beast, we train them to obey, not to communicate. Olivia looked up at him. You mean this used to be common? The priest seemed to choose his words carefully. There are stories from before the Great Silence, when war beasts were companions, not weapons. Before Olivia could ask more questions, her communicator beeped. It was Captain Jones. Dr. Mercer, return to the station immediately. There's a situation. When Olivia returned to Harmony Point, she found chaos. News of her interaction with the war beast had somehow leaked to Earth media. Her picture was everywhere. Headlines called her the Beast Whisperer, an alien tamer. Some reports claimed she had magic powers. Others suggested she was part of a secret military program. This is a nightmare, Captain Jones said as they watched the news reports in the conference room. Earth's united government is demanding information. Military intelligence wants to debrief you, and now we've received this. He handed her a data pad. On it was an official request from the Varaxian High Command. They wanted Olivia to come to their homeworld as an honored guest for what they called cultural exchange. They want me to go to Varax? Olivia said in disbelief. But I'm not a diplomat, I'm just a scientist. Not anymore, said a new voice. A tall woman in a formal Earth government uniform walked into the room. Dr. Mercer, I'm Ambassador Lavar. Read from the diplomatic corps, as of this morning, you've been appointed special envoy to the Varaxian Empire. What? No, there must be some mistake, Olivia protested. No mistake, Ambassador Reed said firmly. This is the first time the Varaxians have invited a human to their homeworld. We cannot pass up this opportunity. You've opened a door no one else could, but I don't know anything about diplomacy. You don't need to. You just need to continue your research on the war beasts. That's your official reason for going. Meanwhile, you'll be our eyes and ears in a place no human has ever been. Dr. Alan Walsh put a hand on Olivia's shoulder. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. We can find another way. Olivia looked at the news reports still playing on the screens, then at the formal request from the Varaxians. She thought about Vexcar and the way it had responded to her songs, about what Zexler had said about ancient bonds between Varaxians and war beasts. I'll do it, she said finally. But I'm going as a scientist first, diplomat second. I want that clear. Ambassador Reed nodded. Of course. You leave in 2 weeks. The diplomatic vessel Starbridge will take you to Varax. As everyone left the room, Olivia stayed behind, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was the Varaxian homeworld, a place no human had ever seen. And she was going there because she had sung to a scared animal. Life had strange ways of changing paths. 2 weeks ago, she had been a simple xenobiologist studying plants. Now aliens were calling her diplomat, and she was headed into the unknown with only a song to guide her. The Starbridge moved through space like a silver needle. Inside, Olivia looked out her window at the stars stretching into lines as the ship traveled faster than light. She had been on the diplomatic vessel for 6 weeks now. 6 weeks of studying, preparing, and wondering if she had made a huge mistake. Dr. Mercer, the captain, would like to see you on the bridge, said a voice over the room speaker. Olivia sighed and closed the book on Varaxian customs she had been reading. She had read it 3 times already, but still felt unprepared for what was coming. On the bridge, Captain Samantha Powell stood looking at star charts. She was tall with short gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. When Olivia entered, she looked up. We're 1 day from Varaxian space, Captain Powell said. I thought you should know that we've received new instructions from their high command. Olivia felt her stomach tighten. What kind of instructions? They want Vexcar to travel with you to the surface. The captain's voice was flat, but her eyes showed concern. The war beast? But it's on a Varaxian military ship. We haven't seen it since we left Harmony Point. Captain Powell nodded. Apparently, it's been difficult to control since your departure. They think having you nearby will help. Olivia wasn't sure how to feel. Part of her was excited to see Vexcar again. Another part was worried about what this meant. There's more, the captain continued. The Varaxians have changed your welcome ceremony. Instead of meeting government officials first, you'll be taken to something called the Temple of Resonant Harmony. Song priests will meet you there. The song priests? Like Zexler? Olivia remembered the priest who had watched her study Vexcar. He had seemed different from other Varaxians, less warlike, more curious. Yes, this is unusual. The priests haven't been involved in politics for centuries, according to our intelligence. The captain handed Olivia a datapad. This is everything we know about the temple and the priests. It's not much. Olivia looked at the pad. There were only a few paragraphs of information and one blurry picture of a spiral building. Ambassador Reed won't be happy about this change, Olivia said. The ambassador had spent weeks coaching her on how to greet Varaxian officials. The ambassador doesn't have much choice. Neither do we, Captain Powell turned back to her star charts. Be ready tomorrow at 0800 hours. A Varaxian shuttle will dock with us at the border of their space. The next morning, Olivia stood in the docking bay with a small bag of personal items and her research equipment. She wore the formal Earth diplomatic uniform that had been made for her, dark blue with silver trim. It felt stiff and unlike her. Usual comfortable science clothes. Ambassador Reed stood next to her, giving last-minute advice. Remember, you're representing all of humanity now. Be respectful but not submissive. Don't agree to anything without consulting me first, Olivia nodded, only half listening. Her mind was on what waited beyond the airlock doors. With a hiss of air, the doors opened. 4 Varaxian guards in full armor stepped through, followed by a familiar figure's Exler, the song priest. Dr. Olivia Mercer, he said in his musical voice. It is good to see you again. It's good to see you too, Zexler, Olivia replied with a small bow of her head. As she had been taught, the priest turned to Ambassador Reed. We will take good care of your scientist diplomat. She will be returned to you after the temple ceremonies. Reed looked unhappy but nodded. We expect regular updates on Dr. Mercer's status. Of course, though Olivia wasn't sure he meant it. The guards led them through the airlock and onto a Varaxian shuttle. It was dark inside with red lights that made everything look like it was covered in blood. The seats were hard and shaped for Varaxian bodies, not human ones. Where is Vexcar? Olivia asked as they prepared for departure. Waiting on the main ship, Zexler replied. It has been difficult since you left. Difficult how? The priest made a gesture with his hands that Olivia couldn't interpret. It refuses food, it fights handlers, it sings. Sings? Olivia leaned forward. You mean the resonance chambers are active? Yes, making patterns that match no Varaxian songs we know. Our scientists believe it is trying to recreate your songs. Olivia felt a mix of guilt and fascination. She hadn't meant to cause trouble for the beast or its handlers, but the idea that it was trying to communicate in her absence was amazing from a scientific standpoint. The shuttle docked with a much larger Varaxian ship. When the doors opened, Olivia heard it immediately, a deep, rumbling sound that vibrated through the metal floor. She knew that sound. It was Vexcar. They led her to a large holding area. 2 Varaxian handlers stood nervously at the edges of the room. In the center was Vexcar. The war beast's scales were dark red and black colors of stress and anger. Olivia had learned. When it saw her, it made a sound that was almost a roar. Zexler and the guards stepped back. It has been like this for days, the priest said. We hoped your presence would calm it. Olivia took a deep breath and stepped forward. Hey there, big guy, she said softly. Remember me? The war beast's 6 legs shifted. Its massive head lowered to her level. Olivia began to hum, then sing the same melody she had first used in the hydroponics bay. Almost immediately, Vexcar's scales began to shift from angry reds to calmer blues and greens. The resonance chambers under its throat vibrated in patterns that matched her song. Remarkable, whispered Zexler from behind her, for the next 3 days. As the ship traveled to Varax, Olivia spent most of her time with Vexcar. She ran tests with her equipment and made notes about how the war beast responded to different songs and sounds. The resonance chambers could create incredibly complex patterns, far more complex than any Earth animal could make. It's like they evolved to communicate this way, she told Zexler on the 3rd day. But somewhere along the way, your people stopped using it for communication and started using it for war. Zexler was quiet for a moment. There are stories, he said finally. Ancient stories about the time before the Great Silence, when Varaxians and the beasts sang together. Not as master and weapon, but as partners. What happened? Olivia asked. War. Always war. The priest looked sad. We fought a terrible enemy. We had to become terrible ourselves to survive. The songs of peace became the roars of battle. Before Olivia could ask more questions, a guard entered the room. We are approaching Varax. All must prepare for landing. Olivia looked out of viewing port as they entered the atmosphere of the Varaxian homeworld. It was beautiful and strange, a planet with rust-colored land and deep red oceans. The cities were made of black stone that shone in the light of the system's sun. The ship landed at a spaceport outside the largest city. When the doors opened, Olivia gasped at the heat and the strange smell of the air like metal and spices mixed together. Come, said Zexler, the temple awaits. A vehicle that hovered above the ground took them through the city. Varaxians. stopped to stare at Olivia, the first human many of them had ever seen. Some looked curious, others looked angry. "Not everyone is happy about your visit," Zexler explained. "The military faction especially. They see any friendship with humans as weakness, and what do the priests think?" Olivia asked. Zexler's cat-like eyes met hers. "We think you might be the answer to a very old prophecy, one that speaks of the return of the voice that tames." Olivia didn't know what to say to that. She was a scientist, not some prophesied figure. But as they approached the spiral towers of the Temple of Resonant Harmony, with Vexcar walking calmly beside their vehicle, she couldn't help but wonder what she had gotten herself into. The Temple of Resonant Harmony looked like nothing Olivia had ever seen. Its spiral towers reached toward the orange sky of Varax. The building seemed to hum as if it was singing a low, gentle song. Vexcar walked beside her as they approached the main entrance, its scales now a calm blue color. "The temple was built to capture sound," Zexler explained as they walked. "The shape of the towers catches the wind and the electrical storms that cross our world. It turns them into music." Olivia listened carefully and realized he was right. The humming changed as the wind shifted. It wasn't random noise, but patterns of sound, almost like the patterns Vexcar's resonance chambers made. "It's beautiful," she said. "It is very old," Zexler replied. "From before the Great Silence, few such buildings remain." At the entrance to the temple stood 12 Varaxians in robes, the color of the planet's red oceans. They bowed their heads as Zexler approached. He spoke to them in the Varaxian language, his voice rising and falling in a way that sounded more like singing than talking. One of the robed figures stepped forward. This Varaxian was older than any Olivia had seen before. The stone-like skin was cracked with age, and the eyes had faded from bright yellow to a soft gold. "I am High Priest Zex Vala," the old Varaxian said in heavily accented human language. "Welcome, voice that tames." Olivia shifted uncomfortably. "My name is Olivia Mercer. I'm a scientist from Earth." The High Priest made a gesture that might have been a smile. "You are both. Come, there is much to show you." Inside the temple, the humming was louder. The walls were covered in carvings that showed Varaxians and war beasts together. In some carvings, they were hunting. In others, they seemed to be singing together. The images were worn with age. "How old are these carvings?" Olivia asked as they walked down a long hallway. 10,000 years, said Zexvala, from the time of songs. They entered a large circular room. In the center was a platform made of a material that looked like glass but glowed with a soft light. Around the edges of the room were what looked like musical instruments, some like drums, others like pipes or strings, but all alien in design. "This is the heart chamber," Zexvala said. "Here, the ancient songs are preserved." The high priest touched a panel on the wall. The glowing platform in the center lit up brighter, and sound filled the room. It was unlike any music Olivia had heard. The four complex layers of tones, some so low she felt them more than heard them, others so high they were at the edge of her hearing. Vexcar's resonance chambers began to vibrate in response. The war beast moved toward the platform, its 6 legs moving in what almost looked like a dance. "The beast remembers," whispered one of the priests. "What is this music?" Olivia asked, fascinated by Vexcar's response. "The oldest song we have recorded," Zexvala said. "The song of beginning. Legend says it was sung together by Varaxians and war beasts when our world was young." Olivia listened more carefully. There were patterns in the music that reminded her of the sounds Vexcar made. But there were other patterns to ones that sounded almost ... human. "This song has elements that sound like human music," she said, surprised. Zexvala nodded. "Yes, that is why your song affected Vexcar so strongly. Your melody contained patterns from the ancient songs, patterns we Varaxians have forgotten." The high priest led her to a small side room. Inside were shelves filled with data crystals and old scrolls. He took down one of the crystals and placed it in a reader. A hologram appeared above it, showing musical notations. These are the ancient song patterns, he explained. For thousands of years, Varaxians and war beasts sang together. We explored the stars with music as our shared language. What happened? Olivia asked. Why did you stop? Zexvala's face darkened, the war of silence. We fought an enemy who used sound as a weapon. They could turn our songs against us 'cause pain and death with harmonics. To survive, we had to silence our songs and turn our companions into weapons. He changed the hologram. Now it showed images of war Varaxians in battle armor with war beasts charging ahead of them, not singing, but roaring. We won the war, but lost part of ourselves, the high priest continued. Over generations, we forgot the old ways. The war beasts became tools, not partners. Only the priests remembered, keeping the old songs safe, waiting for the time when they could be sung again. And you think that time is now? Because of me? Olivia felt overwhelmed by the weight of their expectations. The prophecy speaks of a voice from beyond the stars that would awaken the memory of the beasts, Zexvala said. A voice that would bring back the harmony between species. Before Olivia could respond, there was a commotion outside the room. Loud voices argued in the Varaxian language. Zexler hurried in, looking worried. Military officers have come, he told Zexvala. They demand to see the human. They say we have broken protocols by bringing her here first instead of to the government center. The high priest looked calm. We follow a higher protocol, that of the ancient ways. 4 Varaxians in military armor pushed into the room. Their leader was large even for a Varaxian, with scales on his armor that matched the war beasts. This human was to be brought to the high command, he growled. Not hidden away with priests and old stories. Commander Kexner, Zexvala said calmly. Dr. Mercer is our guest. The high command agreed she could visit the temple first. Plans have changed, the commander said. There are concerns about human spies. She will come with us now. Vexkar, who had followed them into the room, moved to stand between Olivia and the military Varaxians. Its scales had shifted to warning reds and oranges. A low growl came from its throat. Your beast defends the human? Commander Kexner seemed shocked. This proves something is wrong. The humans have found a way to control our war beasts. It is a security threat? No, you don't understand, Olivia said quickly. It's not control, it's communication. The songs, silence. Human, the commander interrupted. You will come with us for questioning. The beast will be examined by our scientists. Zexvala stepped forward. The law gives the temple protection from military interference. You cannot take her from here against our will. Commander Kexner's hand moved to the weapon at his side. Old laws from old times. The safety of Varax comes first. The tension in the room grew. Olivia could feel Vexkar's muscles tensing, ready to attack. This could turn violent very quickly. Wait, she said, stepping forward carefully. I'll go. With you willingly, there's no need for conflict. Olivia, no, Zexler said quietly. The military faction fears what you represent. Change, a return to the old ways. They may not let you return. I have to try to explain, to make them understand. Olivia turned to Commander Kexner. I'll go with you, but Vexkar comes too. And I want Zexler to come as a witness. The commander seemed surprised by her cooperation. The beast and 1 priest may come, the rest stay here. As they prepared to leave, Zexvala pulled Olivia aside. Be careful, voice that tames. Not all want to hear the old songs again. Some prefer the sounds of war. Olivia nodded, feeling the weight of worlds on her shoulders. She was just a scientist who had sung to a scared animal. Now she was caught in the middle of an alien power struggle, with the future of 2 species possibly hanging in the balance. I'll be careful, she promised. And I'll try to help them understand. As she left the temple with the military escort, Vexkar walking protectively at her side, Olivia wondered if she could really bridge the gap between 2 such different worlds. Science had brought her here, but it might take something more to find a way forward, something like the ancient songs that once united Varaxians and their beasts in harmony. The military headquarters of Varax was a dark building made of black stone and metal. It had no curves or spirals like the temple, only sharp angles and straight lines. Olivia sat in a room with metal walls, waiting. They had taken her research equipment and separated her from Vexcar. Only Zexler remained with her, sitting quietly in the corner. "What do you think they'll do?" Olivia asked him. The priest's face was hard to read. "Commander Kexner is not an evil Varaxian, but he is bound by duty and old fears. Our people have been warriors for so long, some have forgotten how to be anything else." The door slid open. Commander Kexner entered with two other military Varaxians. They wore formal armor with symbols that Olivia didn't recognize. "Human," the commander said, "these are members of the High Command. They wish to understand what you have done to our war beast." One of the other Varaxians, a female with lighter-colored skin, stepped forward. "I am General Vextara. We have examined the beast called Vexcar. Its behavior is unusual." "I haven't done anything to harm it," Olivia said. "I just sang to it." The music created a connection. "A connection that should not be possible," said the third Varaxian. "I am Science Director Kexmar. No off-worlder has ever bonded with a war beast. It goes against everything we know about their biology." "Maybe what you know is incomplete," Olivia suggested carefully. "The High Priest showed me records of ancient songs that Varaxians and war beasts once shared." The three military leaders exchanged looks. General Vextara spoke first. "The priests in their old stories, they live in the past human, we live in the present. And in the present, war beasts are weapons, not singing partners. But what if they could be both?" Olivia asked. "What if the connection through music could make them even better companions? More than just weapons?" Science Director Kexmar seemed interested. "Explain," Olivia thought carefully before speaking. "From what I've observed, the war beasts have incredible intelligence. They can understand complex sound patterns. They can communicate emotions and maybe even ideas through their resonance chambers. If you worked with that ability instead of just using them as weapons, think what you could accomplish together." "The priests have filled your head with nonsense, Commander," Kexner said dismissively. "Next you will tell us the old legend about how we once flew among the stars on the songs of beasts?" Zexler spoke from his corner. "It is not nonsense, Commander. It is our history, a history your faction has tried to erase." The tension in the room grew. Olivia could see this argument was old and deep between the military and religious factions. "Of Varaxian society, may I see Vexcar?" she asked, trying to change the subject. "I'd like to show you what I mean about communication." After some discussion among themselves, the Varaxians agreed. They led Olivia and Zexler to another room where Vexcar was being held. The war beast was restrained by energy fields, its scales a dull gray color that Olivia hadn't seen before. "It looks sick or sad. What have you done to it?" she asked, concerned. "Standard containment," said Science Director Kexmar. "It is unharmed." Olivia approached the energy field. "Can you lower this? I can't communicate with it through a barrier." The Varaxians hesitated, then General Vextara nodded. The energy field disappeared. Vexcar immediately raised its massive head, its eyes fixing on Olivia. The gray color of its scales began to lighten. Olivia began to sing. It was the song she had first used with Vexcar, but this time she added elements of the ancient song she had heard in the temple. The effect was immediate. Vexcar's scales shifted to bright blues and purples. Its resonance chambers began to vibrate, creating complex patterns of sound that filled the room. To everyone's surprise, the war beast stood up on its 6 legs and began to move in a pattern that matched the rhythm of Olivia's song. It wasn't just responding to her, it was dancing. "Impossible," whispered Commander Kexner. Then something even more unexpected happened. Zexler began to sing too. His voice joined with Olivia's, adding layers to the melody. The priest's resonance chamber, smaller than the war beast's, but still visible under his throat, vibrated in harmony with Vexcar's. The 3 military Varaxians watched in amazement. Science Director Kexmar's hand moved unconsciously to his own throat, touching the small resonance chambers that all Varaxians possessed but rarely used for anything but speech. The old harmony, Zexler said when the song ended. It is still possible. The door burst open before anyone could respond. A young Varaxian soldier rushed in. General, there's a situation at the temple. The Earthship has landed troops. They claim their diplomat has been kidnapped. Olivia stood up quickly. What? No, there must be some mistake. I came willingly. Your Captain Powell and Ambassador Reed don't know that, Commander Kexner said grimly. They saw you taken by military forces and assumed the worst. We must get to the temple, General Vextara said. If Earth soldiers and our forces clash, it could mean war. They rushed to military vehicles outside the building. Olivia insisted on bringing Vexkar, who refused to be separated from her again. As they sped toward the temple, she could see ships in the sky, both Varaxian and the human vessel Starbridge. At the temple, human security forces in Earth uniform stood facing Varaxian soldiers. Captain Powell and Ambassador Reed were in front of the human group, while High Priest Zexvala stood between the two sides, trying to calm the situation. This is exactly what we feared, Commander Kexner said as they arrived. Humans using our internal divisions to gain advantage. No, Olivia said firmly. This is a misunderstanding, not an invasion. Let me talk to them. She jumped out of the vehicle and ran toward the standoff, Vexkar following close behind her. Some of the Varaxian soldiers raised weapons when they saw the war beast, but General Vextara ordered them to hold. Captain Powell, Ambassador Reed, Olivia called. Stand down. There's no need for this. Captain Powell looked relieved to see her. Dr. Mercer, are you all right? We received word you had been taken prisoner. I wasn't taken prisoner. I went with them voluntarily to explain my research. Olivia moved to stand between the two groups, with Vexkar beside her. There's been a misunderstanding, that's all. Ambassador Reed looked skeptical. The Varaxian military took you from the agreed meeting place without notification. That violated our diplomatic protocols. And your landing? Armed forces violated ours, countered Commander Kexner. The situation was still tense. Soldiers on both sides kept their hands near their weapons. One wrong move could start a conflict. Olivia looked at Vexkar, then at Zexler and High Priest Zexvala. She made a decision. Olivia began to sing again, louder this time. The ancient melody echoed off the temple walls. Vexkar's resonance chambers responded immediately, amplifying the sound. Zexler joined in, then Zexvala. To everyone's surprise, some of the younger Varaxian soldiers began to sing too, their dormant resonance chambers awakening to the old harmonies. The sound grew until it filled the space between the two groups. It wasn't just noise, it was communication. Even the humans could feel it, a vibration that spoke of peace and unity more clearly than any words could. When the song ended, the silence felt different, softer, less dangerous. What was that? Ambassador Reed asked quietly. That, said High Priest Zexvala, was how Varaxians spoke before we became warriors. It is the language of harmony that we once shared with the beasts and the stars. General Vextara stepped forward, looking at her soldiers who had sung. I have not heard such sounds since I was a child. My grandmother used to hum such patterns. The memory remains in all of us, Zexvala said. We just needed someone to remind us. In the days that followed, a new kind of diplomatic meeting took place, not in government buildings or military headquarters, but in the Temple of Resonant Harmony. Humans and Varaxians sat together, listening to the ancient songs and learning what they meant. Olivia worked with scientists from both species, studying how the resonance chambers of Varaxians and war beasts created such complex patterns of sound. They discovered that certain human vocal patterns could match these vibrations in ways no one had thought possible. 1 year later, Olivia stood in a new building that combined elements of both human and Varaxian design. It was the Interspecies Harmony Institute, built halfway between the temple and the city. Inside, human and Varaxian scientists worked together. War beasts moved freely, no longer weapons but partners in research. Not bad for someone who just wanted to study plants, Captain Powell said. Standing beside her, Olivia smiled as she watched a group of young Varaxians and human students singing together. A war beast curled comfortably among them. Sometimes? The universe has different plans, she said. I came to study life on other worlds. Instead, I learned that music might be the most universal language of all. In the distance, the temple of resonant harmony caught the wind, turning it into song. That drifted across the red landscape of Varaxa planet that was learning to sing again.